Hello, my name is Carol May Whittick, spiritual life coach and your host of Her Conversations Tools for the Awakening. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. This is the optimal state to embody in order to attract our highest desires. What is the awakening? This is the moment in time when humanity rises up out of the darkness. Who is awakening? Each one of us present on Earth today, reclaiming our sovereignty, seeking greater possibilities in our reality and looking for solutions. We know being awakened is not a lofty ideal, but a necessity. If we can transform ourselves, we can change the world. Guests on Her Conversations speak to your spirituality, sensuality, and soul. Listen to their stories and hear how they are in service to the world. Let their words and these conversations embolden and inspire you. This week, my guest is Dr. Lisa Petty, Midlife Alchemist and Wisdom Channel. Her doctorate was earned as a result of her own research into what gets in the way of women taking care of their own well-being. She has created Midlife Alchemy, an online mentorship program, a place for women to gain clarity about who they are and the life they wish to create. She has also authored a book, Forget About Having It All. During our conversation, Lisa talks about the events in her life that sparked her return to education and the creation of her business, and also how societal programs dampens women's perception of what is possible for them. So as always, I begin by asking my guests, HER is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. When do you feel that higher energetic resonance?
What a lovely question. And this is so important. I'm glad you ask it of your listeners, actually. It's so important for every woman to ask this question of themselves because I think it is I call it the North Star that helps you make all of your decisions. And for me, I feel that the most when I am sitting by water. So my ultimate is sitting on a dock on top of the water and just feeling the dock moving up and down and listening to wildlife, the birds, the wind, and all of that. And it's not so much the location, but what the location brings up for me. And what the location brings up for me is just this sense of connection and connection to Mother Earth, connection to all that is. And for me, that brings a feeling of peace and expansiveness that is just so delicious and a place that I really like to hang out.
I'm glad that you like that question as well. I mean, I like that question, and I didn't realize the impact it was going to have when I decided that I was going to lead with that question before I even ask anybody their name or to tell themselves about something, because it's one of those things that if somebody asks you a question, your mind goes there, your body goes there, and it gets you into that space for yourself before we
Yes.
go into a conversation, about whatever we're going to talk to. So you're in that place, and your description of it brings me there. So we're on a nice kind of start before we even get into the meat of our conversation. But now that we're in your higher energetic resonance, explain a little bit more about your story, Lisa, and what got you to where you are today and doing the work that you're doing today.
Uh, well, I'm so happy that you're sitting here on the dock with me. And this is
Mm.
a lovely conversation to be having on the dock as we feel the sun warm our skin. And so, what happened for me was I had worked for years as a holistic nutritionist, working exclusively with women because I get women. I understand women, right? Being one, I get how our bodies work and I get what some of our pressures are. So I'd been doing this for almost 2 decades, and I started to notice this trend working with women that they weren't doing the thing that they agreed that they were going to do in order to get the result that they said they wanted to get. So, if they were trying to release weight, they weren't doing the things that they agreed that, oh, yeah, that's a great first step. Let's start with that. So, a good example is water, right? So they agreed, yes, I'll drink more water. And then we'd get back together in a couple of weeks and I'd say, so how did you do drinking the water? And they'd say, yeah, I didn't get around to it. And I'd be like, oh, okay, cool. Do you want to try that for next time? Yeah, 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 sure, sure. Put that on I'll 100%. I can do it next time. get together the next time and I'd say, "So how'd you do with drinking the water?" And they'd say, "Yeah, I didn't do it." And so this became a pattern that I noticed that women at midlife just weren't finding the time or the commitment to themselves to follow through on the things that they even said that they wanted and that they agreed wholeheartedly things that they wanted to do. I started to think personally, I have a skills gap. I can't reach these people anymore. I'm not able to motivate them. Something's missing. So that was happening for me in my professional field. So we'll put a pin in that for a second because we all live in a personal life also. And in my personal life, my baby, I have 2 children, my baby started looking at university brochures, and I could see the writing on the wall. I could see into the future, and I knew that I had an empty nest showing up for me. And I was thinking, "Oh my gosh, what am I gonna do then? I don't wanna spin out of control. I need to get ahead of this. I need to start developing a plan to manage this shift of identity that's gonna happen, this gap that's gonna open up in my life. And I have to figure out who I am if I'm not a full-time, day-to-day, 24/7 mom of a young child." And so, I decided to go back to university to get my graduate degree. I got in my 40s now. I'm late 40s. I got my master's degree exploring sort of the eating experience for women at midlife, like what's going on with food and women. And then the research bug bit, and I thought, okay, I'm going to ask a bigger question. I decided to do my doctorate, and I looked at what gets in the way of women at midlife taking care of their all aspects of their well-being. So I have a degree in self-care.
Mm.
Specifically self-care for women at midlife, and it was an amazing parallel journey that I went on, this professional journey trying to understand what was going on in my personal life. And then to come out the other side with a complete understanding of all the influences on women, all the things that get in the way, and that understanding that what I was going through, I wasn't going through it alone. I was going through something that every woman goes through.
Every woman goes through it, but women handle it differently. So, what
Yes.
is it that you were noticing was the underlying reason or motivation for some women who would get to midlife and it would be like, okay, and then kind of almost like change gears and go faster into it?
Mhm.
Others would decline and kind of go into a hiding space. And then others, I think we spoke about it before, that are just like trying to reverse and go
Right.
back in time and like not face the inevitable, not realize the benefits of what they're moving into, that they've had, 40, 50 years of lived
Yes.
experience, and not wanting to elevate that into something beautiful and actually just want to kind of reverse and be the girl again. Like, what were you noticing were the difference between those different directions? I'm sure there's many more.
There are lots, but the key thing that comes to mind when you ask me that question
Mm,
is a woman's ability to take responsibility for her choices and, um, expectations for her future, to tune into who she is, to be really honest with herself about why she came here, right? What what is she good at? What does she excel at? What can she not do, right? And value herself, even if she doesn't have all the answers, because we don't. And life is a path, right? We're constantly learning and growing. We're sort of like that expression, like sharks, if they're not moving, they die. Same thing with us, right? If we're not growing and developing, we stagnate and wither. And it's that sense of curiosity, that sense of moving forward, that sense of knowing. So, something that kicks up at midlife, despite everything else, and I'm sure we'll talk about all the other things, there are these stirrings. I call them stirrings, soul stirrings that happen at midlife, and they poke at you and they say to you, what are you doing? What is your legacy? What do you want this to mean? How is your life going to be of value? And, um, the women who move beyond the stuck place look at those questions. They're willing to do the work. They're willing to ask the questions, the right questions, not the, "Oh, woe is me, why is this happening to me?" question, but the, "What can I shift in order to have the experience I want to have in my life?" That kind of question. So the difference about the pathways, whether you're stuck or going backwards, so those are 2, right? You're either going backwards, you wanna be 27 again,
Mm.
which we've talked about is not, it's not even possible, right? So why? Then there's the getting stuck, and I think that getting stuck has a lot to do with, first of all, we're not taught the skills. This is not a judgment. We are not taught the skills as women to really reflect on what we want and what we're good at, despite what society tells us that we should want and what we should be good at and what personality traits are accepted and which ones are not accepted. Um, and so, yes, so choosing that path forward, that um, figuring out who you are and creating the life that you want, it it's moving out of that victim, this is happening to me, why is this happening to me, and moving into, how can I, those are the questions. How can I shift and get out of this feeling of uncertainty and lack of clarity about my life and what I want to create? How can I have clarity? How can I create the things that I know I want? Maybe I'm not ready to admit it out loud. How can I do that? I think that's the important shift.
How do you think the messaging that's informing the majority of women that they're really latching onto, what did you hear, or in your experience of dealing with different women, what was a kind of repeated term that you heard about? What was a kind of repetitious belief that you were noticing with the majority, especially the ones that were unable to ask that "how can I" question?
Well, there's a lot of pressure on women in terms of how we're supposed to show up in the world. And so one of the examples I love to use is the idea of you can have it all. So this, any woman who is in their midlife now, anyone who came of age sort of late 70s, 80s, early 90s, our lives, our experiences were framed by this concept, you can have it all. And it sounds super, super empowering. Like, woo, you can just do anything. You are unbelievably, free to create. But what it really meant was that you have to. It's not you had a choice, you have to. So you have to get a secondary education, you have to get a really amazing career, you have to find the perfect partner, you have to have 2.5 children, you have to get a couple of cars, you have to live in a huge house, white picket fence, you have to go on a couple of vacations a year, you have to be size 6 forever, always look good when you go out in public, be an amazing mother, never lose your cool, be sexually available to your partner all the time, and always be able to make everybody else happy. Like, just show up and be this brilliant, amazing specimen. And that's what was expected. And we took it on. We took it on, which is the crazy part. We thought, "Oh, okay. Well, we have a different experience than our mothers. We have all of these freedoms now. It's my responsibility to go out and do it all." Okay. How did that work out for you? Right? We show up at midlife, we're exhausted because we stop listening to our body's many cries for rest, many cries for finding that uh, higher energetic resonance. Is that what you called it? Um, Many cries for tuning in and listening to our soul and our spirit and our inner guidance, for connecting with uh, God, source, the universe, all that is, whatever language resonates for you. We showed up, we're exhausted. We didn't do all the things, clearly, because all the things is a ridiculous list. But
Mm.
because it was expected, because it was put out to us, we feel badly that we didn't achieve it. We hide that we didn't get it all done. So we show up and we just feel like failures. And
Mm.
it's not right because this was some kind of mythological media blitz thing that happened in the early 80s that we just accepted it.
Right.
So I think step 1 is let go of that. Let go of that idea about forcing yourself to have it all. Because I use that as an umbrella term for all the different social expectations that are on women. It all goes under this idea of what having it all looks like.
Mm.
And if we can let go of that silly myth of having it all and really start to look at what it is you want and let go of all of those expectations on you that don't appeal to you, that exhaust you, that are the exact opposite of what makes your heart sing.
Mm.
If we can let go of those things, then we can create something going forward in our lives that is magical and invigorating and powerful and whatever that resonance is you want to achieve, whether it's peace or joy or excitement, you can follow that path
Mm.
yourself without all of these other pressures.
And you know what I wanted to say to that as well, because I'm 50 now, and I grew up seeing the having it all, the house, the car, the spouse, and all the pets and the holidays and the career and all of these things. And I did none of that. In the same way that going for it and trying to attain all the things had its challenges and had its burnout, the desire to go opposite to that or to go your own way in the face of that being the overwhelming norm was equally as difficult, because you've got everyone supporting this having it all thing. You're trying to follow your heart and soul with this, well, that doesn't really look like it, and you're trying to go your way, and you're bucking against the tide that's coming at you, that's supporting the having it all. You're not having it all. You're being told that you've got nothing and are
Right.
nothing as a result of trying to do everything but. And then also you have to really pull on yourself continuously to just remind yourself that that's not what you want, this is what you want. So there was challenges all around, because you've got this massive archetype of what a woman should be living in these modern times, and you're being anything other than that, going against it and being equally as challenged as the people who are in the maelstrom of all of those things and trying to spin all the plates, when you're trying to, like, I'm trying to make my own plates and not spin, actually. Just
Right.
sit down and eat at one, if you don't mind. So it's almost as if there was a no-win situation for anyone. So even though you wanted to, I'm talking about myself now, wanted to follow your own path, um you were going so far in the face of what everything else was, that you had to really pull on your own reserves, and that in itself is exhausting, when you know that just the mere mention of you talking about how you feel about things will either trigger somebody because you should be doing it, or they are in the center of it realizing it's not working and not knowing how to let it go. It was, no one was going to win on any level, really, and I was stubborn enough.
100%. Yeah. So two things come to mind as you
Mm.
were sharing there. First thing is, a really good example of that experience for women like you is women who chose not to have children, right?
Mm.
There was constantly every party, I bet, every wedding, every situation. When are you going to have a child? Constantly have to defend your decision not to. That's a really common pushback against social expectations on women to be mother. I mean, in the literature, mother and woman are almost on the same line. It's like, well, if you're a woman, you're a mother. Not that that was the path that I chose, but it's one that we need to be aware of. And the second thing I want to share is, based on what you said, you chose early, and yeah, you knew from a younger age that you needed to tune inward and turn inward and um, not be swayed by the pressures. And so now, when women get to midlife, we, by virtue of being no longer fertile in many cases,
Mm.
no longer young. Those are the two criteria of being women, by the way. You must be young and beautiful, and you must be fertile. Once you're not that anymore, you're already not meeting up to social expectations of you. So if you accept that, and it's very freeing to do that, now you can see how you simply must operate outside of social expectations. You simply must. And if we would all just do that, it would be so much easier for all of us.
Mm.
We could change what the social expectations are for women, not only for ourselves as midlife women, saying, hey, I have a voice, I have a lot to say. In fact, I have so much more to say now than I did when I was 20 because I have this, I have decades of experience. I have so much to share, so many perspectives, so much that I've noticed that I would like you to make different choices. I'd like you to make better choices. We have so much to share now, right? And it does take courage. It does take courage to no longer try to squeeze into the jeans you wore when you're 27. To just say, you know what, someone else can enjoy those jeans.
Mm.
That's not my body anymore. Or the simple choices like just deciding to let the gray hair come in, just deciding to be comfortable in your skin because we aren't our wrinkles, we aren't our gray hair, we aren't our tight and tiny waist when we're not that. We're never the body, right? Uh, the body is a huge expectation, again, on what it's supposed to be a woman. But we can just move beyond that and realize that our power comes from within. I think, oh my gosh, it's so valuable.
Yeah, yeah. And I see, we touched on this before as well. So many women who are in their mid 50s and early 60s that I have as acquaintances, and I really notice them struggling with that. Really notice them struggling with that. And it's one of the things that really surprised me. And I've said to varying different friends, especially friends of mine that are younger in their 40s and 30s, that I always imagined that when I got to my 50s and in my 50s, I'd be able to have and sit and have these big, deep, wise conversations with women who were older than me about life and, the way it unfolds and the wisdom. And while there are women who I can speak to about that, they're actually in the minority. And
Hmm.
that was a surprise to me because I just thought that, with wisdom, you want to tell everyone your story, because I grew up around women who allowed their bodies to go the way that they did, so they weren't kind of holding on to things. They always did tell me, how gorgeous they were when I was this
Right.
age and had all the memories of when they were young and were size whatever. But were able to impart like wisdom and really great stories about things, and they were quite more free about letting their hair grow and being in their bodies and allowing the weight to come on, like sometimes wisely so and sometimes not wisely so for their
Hmm.
health benefits, but they just kind of went with it really without any like massive resistance that I'm seeing, like a huge
Yes.
well of a real resistance to kind of settle into where they are. And that's not to settle in and say let go, because those are,
Right.
that whole phrase of letting herself go is another thing.
Right.
But just allowing themselves to celebrate where they've got to and look over what they've overcome. Because for me, turning 50 was like, I can't believe I made it. I didn't make a big thing of it. I didn't have big party and cakes and everything like that. It was a day with myself of like, wow. Like, I actually really can't believe that I made it here because of all the things and all the times where I just thought, I don't think I'll make it with my mind intact, even if I get there physically. Whereas I got to that age where like I made it. Okay, now we're gonna like really do something with all the things that we've learned and turned it in, put the gears and put the energy behind everything even more so than before, because I mean, as a celebration of the fact that I didn't give up on myself. Pressure was coming from all sides to like, why don't you just
So many things in what you just said. First of all, I think not only, have women who are midlife now been molded by society and social expectations, our mothers were too.
Mhm.
They didn't have the same social media
Right.
pressure that we growing up and the younger people now. But I mean, do you remember the fashion magazines with the sexy women half dressed on the cover telling you what you should look like, and how what you're supposed to do in bed, and how much money you're supposed, like, the pressure was everywhere for us to become this ideal. um I think our generation is a little bit more open to discussing these things, but I don't know about you, but my mother never talked to me about menopause.
Mm,
It wasn't done. You didn't talk about those things. And I don't know if that's a Western culture thing. I know in some of the indigenous cultures, there's a lot more honoring of wisdom and elders, and the passing down of traditional knowledge and ways of being that we I think we're starved from in our culture, because we don't honor wisdom. We don't honor older people. We don't honor aging. For some reason, we have equated aging with a disease.
mm,
And it's not a disease, it's a privilege.
right.
And we need to reframe that. We need to think, celebrate turning 50, to celebrate turning 60, to celebrate turning 70, because as you said, like, yay, you made it.
Right.
And there's a reason you're still here,
Mm,
right? There's a reason. And what is that reason? And maybe the reason is just to celebrate the heck out of every single day you're alive. Maybe that's your purpose, right? Maybe you're supposed to do that. So hold that vibration of celebration so that everybody else around you goes, hey, what are you so happy about? What's going on with you? I want a little bit of what you're having, right?
yeah. Yeah.
So I think, we need to shift that. Aging is a wonderful thing.
Mm,
um, and sadly, sort of aging as disease has trickled down to even kids in their 20s.
mm,
I have heard my daughter, when she was in her 20s, her friends saying, "Oh, we're so old now."
yeah.
And I was just like, "What the heck, guys? No, no. What is that sense of, I don't know, this, once you have achieved age, you're just supposed to stop?" Like, I don't know where that came from, but it is sort of the opposite of that youth, beauty, and fertility, isn't it? So if that's the ideal, youth, beauty, and fertility, then the opposite is old, stagnant, and stale. So
Yeah.
let's just bust that, right? Let's just bust it right now,
Yeah.
and make aging beautiful,
Mm,
and make aging all about wisdom and
mm.
reflection and sharing.
Yeah. I wanted to just add to that. A few weeks back I went to my godmother's 80th birthday party. Her daughters, like, who are my god sisters, and one of them's been living in the States, so she'd come back for the party after like 28 years. I didn't realize she'd been
Wow.
gone that long. And it was on a Saturday night, and it was in a place that, unless you had a car, it was it was kind of, it was a trick to get to. And she had a dress code, everyone needed to wear gold and green if they could. What was amazing about that, and they walked her in, and she was all dressed, and she had a tiara and beautiful hair, and she sat up, and they had like a stage, almost like the way that they lay out a wedding. What really struck me, and I'd said to her as well, was there were like pretty much 300 people in that room. 300 people that will come out on a Saturday night to celebrate you. And they had games, and they had music, and they had food, and people were giving speeches of all ages, people that had known her since years ago to great grandkids. And I was, and she's like, just having a quick word with her and just saying, do you really, to be 80 years old and to have a room full of 300 people come and celebrate you on a Saturday night, when people are really precious about their evenings, that in
Mhm.
itself was so inspiring to me. I'm like, if you can do that, she's got
Mm.
30 years on me, so I've got 30 years to impress 300 people.
Right, exactly. Oh, challenge accepted.
But it was just, for me to see that, and to see that you can have an impact on people's lives. I think perhaps what we never really take into consideration is just by, she's not a famous woman. She's famous within her
Mhm.
community and her church because she's given so much wisdom and impact. And she's a
Mhm.
very prayerful woman. And people respect the power of her prayers. They know that if she prays for you, and I've had her stand in front of me and pray, and you're moved, like, she
Mm.
is speaking to you on a level and on a vibration that she means it. She's
Yeah.
asking for something to happen in her life, and one of her granddaughters had got up and said a speech and said, I know that every time that I speak to my grandma and my grandma says she's going to pray for me, that it's done, because such
Nice.
is the power of that of her prayer. And I think if we could, I looked at it, I was like super inspired. I was just like, okay, I've got stuff to do to be able to impact people so that and it's not because I want them to like me, it's just because I want to kind of pour into people's lives from my own experience.
So there we are. That's a beautiful example. Your godmother is a beautiful example of what we can all be.
Mm,
And it's not about being famous, right? It's not about, people think, oh, what is my purpose? I'm meant to do, I'm meant to change the world. Well, yes, you are,
yeah.
by being, not by doing.
Mm,
It's just by being. And you inspire people when you are fully aligned with your being, right? If you came here and you have an amazing sense of humor and you leave every room cracked up,
exactly.
crying, they're laughing so hard, that is a gift, right? Own it,
Mm,
share it. If you, like your godmother, and pray and inspire other people. See, what I heard there when you told that story of the granddaughter was like, learn from her how to do it yourself, right? Learn from your grandmother how she made that connection, and like, grandma's not the only one who can do that.
mm,
You can do that too. If that inspires you, if that sparks your imagination, then it's meant for you,
right.
right? So, um, I I know we talked earlier about Gloria Steinem's famous quotation about gray-haired women and her vision that someday she sees an army of gray-haired women taking over the world.
Mm,
And I just absolutely love that vision. And I think that we can get there. We can get there if we all honor being 50, being 60, being 70, being 80, right? Um, Talking now about the women at midlife and whatever that means. Everybody has their own definition of what midlife is. It's that place where you get to make that pivot from, am I going to be a victim of these social pressures telling me I'm not good enough, I'm not cut, I'm not hitting the mark, I don't have all of these things they're saying. First of all, I'm getting older, so that's not working, right? Like, are you going to be a victim to all of that? Or are you going to just realize it's garbage that the system made up so that you would continue to feel badly about yourself? So, truth be told, so you go and spend your money getting Botox and makeup and hair dyes and trying the latest diet and buying a new car and the latest phone and all of those things, those superficial things, to make you feel superficially better for 10 minutes, when really all you need to do is tune inward and really figure out what's important to you. And if
mm.
it's the new lipstick, go buy the new lipstick. Chances are it's not that. Chances are it's much more personal and intimate than that.
And how do you guide women to start to hear that inner voice or tune into that inner whatever it looks like for them? I mean, I know mine, I'm very connected to that. So that's why I could fly in the face of all of this stuff.
It's never easy, and let's
But
be clear. Like,
mm,
even at midlife, when you decide, I'm not going to do it your way anymore, it's my time now.
right.
I think at midlife we get a little bit of chutzpah that we didn't have before, right? We have the ability to say, no, no, I'm not listening to your crap anymore. I'm no. So at least that, right? There is that inner resolve that comes at midlife as well. That's really powerful. But if you aren't sure, if you're listening to this and go, yeah, I don't want to be a victim of the system anymore, which sounds really, I don't know, hippy dippy, but
Mm,
it's really that. It's all of this programming that tells you that you're supposed to be this way and you're supposed to look like this. And if you're not doing this and you haven't achieved that, then you're a loser and a failure and you better go spend some money fixing it. If you realize that's not the path you want to take anymore, if you're starting to hear the stirrings and you're starting to realize that you have an opportunity to make different choices, but you don't know what to do, the first step is just quiet. just remove yourself from all the distractions that are telling you how you're supposed to be. So that means limit your time on social media because, all those influencers out there telling you what you're supposed to be doing, not helpful. Stop listening to the media, period. I mean, the news media is full of garbage um, that isn't helpful. It's not helping. Get off of Netflix, for goodness sake. There is so much programming that comes through our television programming. It's called programming for a reason. And have you ever noticed that the stars of all these shows are absolutely beautiful and thin and athletic, and their characters are wealthy, and it's unrealistic. And yet you look at these beautiful people and think, well, one more example of how I'm not good enough, right? Just just unplug from all of it. Just go on a technology break, a screens break, whatever you want to call it. Buy yourself a journal. You can buy a beautiful journal, spend as much money as you want, or you could go to the dollar store and pick up a journal, a notebook. I do recommend buying a nice pen that flows well. That if you're going to pour money into anything, get a pen that doesn't get stuck on the paper and just ask yourself questions. Now, I know journaling can, some people are like, journaling, I can't do that. I don't like to write. It doesn't work for me. I have to confess, even as a writer, I resisted journaling for most of my life. And I think the reason I resisted it is because I knew how powerful it would be if I actually did it. So if you're resisting, if you're listening and you're resisting, I encourage you to move past that resistance, open up the journal, and start. For me, it's a start your day thing. You have to find your own rhythm. Maybe it's a after lunch thing for you, maybe it's a before bed thing for you. But start with the question, what would you have me know? And you might start writing about the weather. You might start writing about your grocery list, and that's okay. If you've never done it before, this is going to happen. It's just the resistance. But eventually, your higher self will kick in and tell you, and you'll hear it. And you'll know that it's not something that you're thinking when your hand is just writing and stuff is coming out. And when you're done, you read it and you go, what? That was no grocery list. That was a powerful message. And we all have it in us, but there's so much noise. There's so much noise that we don't hear it. So an easy breezy one, unplug from the noise. If you can do this outside, and where I live now, we're heading into spring. We can start being outside again. If you can do it outside, all the better because you're more connected, right? If you don't have a backyard, if you live in a building, go to a park, sit under a tree. It helps. It really does help detangle from society and get back to connecting with the universe, Mother Nature, sort of that universal energy. It's really powerful.
I mean, my journaling, I think I started when I was very young, just because I like write. I always had the notebooks for songwriting, so I was always writing and writing little books and things like that. I can't say I've been consistent over the years, but when I do pick up and write, and especially when I get into that flow that you're talking about, where it's just automatic and you allow things to come through without stopping and editing it and just write until you run out and then go back. And if you can read your handwriting, because sometimes I'm in
Yes.
a flow where I don't even know what it is that's come out, but it's interesting, those little droplets of wisdom or direction that you get that you would miss very often, because you're trying to edit or make it pretty.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's just let it be you. Like no one has to see it.
Yes.
It's just you with your thoughts. And it's yeah, it's powerful. It does get kind of poo-pooed as something that's kind of trite and cheesy, but no, the power of getting your thoughts in tangible form as well, I think, is also very indicative to you that you're a creator, that you can pull something that has no form into the form world, and you can then really connect with that part of you that wants to give you information, wants to give you it's not just floating around in your head, because if you don't get it down somehow in some form, it doesn't seem real. And the power of just getting it so that you can see it, and if you choose to then show it to other people, shows you that you are a creator. And I think with so many people, they just don't think that they're creative, but
Oh, oh, 100%. So the other thing too is it's not just your thoughts you get down on paper. I think that's step one. Your thoughts get down on paper. But the next step is your feelings get down on paper. And that's when we start to see shifts, when we can get our feelings down on paper. And the next step is when we're channeling and we don't know where it came from. So that's your scribble writing, right? That's your songwriting. It's not you. When you're in flow, it's not you.
Mhm.
And when I write articles, I've written books. When I am in flow, I didn't write it. And I read it later and I go, oh my God, that's brilliant. Right. And I can say that because I didn't write it. It
Mm.
came directly from wisdom.
Right.
I was the vehicle. I was the channel that got the message out into the world, but it wasn't me. And that is where the the true um, power of journaling comes when you're out of your head. Then you move into your feelings, and then you let that go, and it's just flowing. And as you said, people poo-poo it. If you're someone who likes the research, all the research says it is the best thing you can do for mindfulness, for staying present, for your self awareness, for reducing anxiety, for helping you increase your self esteem. It's journaling.
And it's also great for noticing patterns as well. When you realize that you're writing something, that if you go back and being able to recognize the patterns and then investigate why you think these patterns are recurring, and then see if you can deal with the dismantling of that pattern, if that's what needs to happen, or seek guidance and support to
Yes.
actually help you work through that as well.
And that's the other thing that's really important for women. We're not very good at asking for help.
Yeah.
Let's put an end to that also. Because why doesn't grandmother tell us what she thinks? Because we don't ask her,
Mm.
right? Let's start asking. Let's start when we don't know the answer to a question. Let's look to somebody who's offering that support and guidance to help us. They don't do the work. You don't go. You don't go to an expert for them to fix you,
Mhm.
right? That's not what it's about. You don't go to a coach for them to, wave a magic wand and say, boom, you're done. Off you go, sweetheart. No, that's not what it is. You go to a coach because they know how to get you to ask yourself the questions you need to ask to get the answers that work for you.
Mhm.
But so on the one hand, I believe we have all the answers within us, but we don't have all the questions. We don't have all the right questions within us. And that's when sometimes we need to go out to someone else and say, "Can you guide me here?" So that would be my next thing, ask for support, ask for help, right? And you'll know if it's the right help if you tune in. If you get some guidance and some feedback and it makes you feel heavy or anxious or frustrated or um, not good, then it's not for you.
Mhm.
When you get the support and guidance that makes you feel whatever your highest energetic resonance is, then that's for you. Go with that. Take a step in that direction.
It's good that you got it out, because it's the having it all is always kind of made that she's got it all together, and she's
Yes.
kind of clicking her fingers, and I'm thinking of things like the what was that film, Melanie Griffith. She was like one of the forerunners of like the archetype that played that kind of have it all woman
Yeah.
during those times as well, that kind of have it
Working
all.
girl, I think.
Was it Working Girl that she was
I
in?
don't
Like, a lot
I
of
don't know.
those kind of
Yeah.
like those kind of films that, what did they call them, ball buster women, such as
Yes, the
this
big shoulder pads and the big
yeah.
hair and that was, just as an aside, that uniform of the 80s was because women were trying to fit into the man's world in an inauthentic way. We weren't showing up as women in our divine feminine energy. We were trying to be men.
Mm, mm,
And I think that's where we started to go off the rails, right? We weren't honoring ourselves anymore. We were trying to fit into a system that honored how men become successful. Those movies and that whole thing was part of the problem,
right.
right? And now you see women starting their own companies and their own businesses, and they're heart led, and they're doing it using their feminine power, or the companies that they create honor the way that women are meant to move through the world, right?
Mm.
And so there is a shift coming, but only for the women who say, okay, I'm gonna own it. I'm gonna
Yeah.
own it and own myself and be me fully all the time, 24/7,
And ask for help and
and
ask for
ask for help.
collaboration. And also another thing that
Collaboration.
popped into my mind as well was to get rid of this idea. Another thing that got put into the minds was this competition between
Yes.
women as well, of kind of, pushing your competition out the way, and and elbowing, and stiletto in the hand and all of that stuff. And I'm seeing now how it's this kind of real each one teach one situation with
Yes.
the women who are embracing the wisdom that they have. There is still that kind of competition, and that um passive aggressive, and that negativity and that martyrdom that still exists, but there is a more swelling of like, we can do it, we can create abundance and successful businesses, but from a different point of view, with ease, and also being unashamed to ask for what it is that we want to create as well. Because
Yes.
before there was like, how dare you say that you want to be that successful? It's like, no, no, no. Why do you want to create something on that scale? But like, why not? And especially if you see it in your mind that this is where this could possibly go, this is what I could possibly do, and the fun of trying to make it happen, as opposed to it being, well, I best not tell anybody, because and shying away and playing small. So it's this nice turn and shift that I'm sensing and seeing, and moving more aligned with that kind of community of women, so that there's something new that we can create, and recreate what it is to move into these different decades of our life, not only for ourselves but also for those 20-year-old girls that think they're ancient already. It's like, if you're if you're knocking yourself off the ledge already, then the next 30-40 years are going to be super painful for you.
For sure. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's you said something there that was important because it linked to something you said earlier. And for women who aren't aware of this, if you imagine something, it is for you to bring into form. So if you think, "Oh, wouldn't it be great to XYZ?" and you see it and you feel it and you smell it, it's
Right.
yours. It's yours. And let that vision pull you forward, right? Ask it, how do I find you? What would you like me to do next? Who do I have to be to bring you into form? How can I become her?
Yeah.
That's the trick right there.
And it's interesting you say that, because I've just created a program called Embody Higher Energetic Resonance, which is all about that, which is all about stepping into that power of, like, you don't get given your dreams to taunt you and to tell you what you can't have. It's
Right.
all about, this is your higher self. Just go and step into that power and do it, and your life will open up, and it's miracles and magic. The little that I've seen just by launching that a few days ago, that people have come out of the woodwork to say, oh, I see what you're doing now, and without doing that, you
Nice.
just feel like you're completely on your own, thinking in your head, but it isn't. It's when you move towards that, I truly believe.
I call it alchemy. So it's the same. It's
Yeah.
sort of my process is midlife alchemy. It's taking the mundane and creating
Mm.
that vision for yourself, whatever that is, and no judgment. And here's the other thing too. We talk about not being afraid to share our vision. I'm going to put a caution around that, because if you share it when it's delicate and you haven't yet created your community, your collaborative community, your support community, and you share your little, I call it your little egg.
Right,
If
right.
you share your egg too soon, Some bully is going to come and crush it for you. And it's really hard to recover your enthusiasm if it's crushed at that birth stage, right? So
Especially if it's done by another woman.
yes, and it can be someone who says that they want the best for you and they want to support you, but really they're afraid of you leaving them. So they're going to crush you and keep you where you are. And that's harsh, but that's the reality of it. When your vision is small and not quite clear and you haven't got your confidence around it yet, keep it to yourself. Keep it precious. Keep it precious. And then when you have a full sense of it, and nothing is going to stop you, that's when you can start sharing it.
Yeah, I agree with you that as well, because I've made the mistake of talking too soon about dreams, and it just be, eye roll tut.
Because you don't have enough answers yet, right? You don't have enough answers to counter the, yeah, but what are you going to do about this? Yeah, but what about that? Yeah, but this, yeah, but yeah, all the yabbits, right? So yeah, just keep it. Just keep precious until you'll know when it's safe. You know when it's time.
And before we finish today, it's been such a good filled conversation. What have you got coming up with your work? Is there anything that you'd like to share with the audience of how to find you and what you've got to offer?
You can visit my website, lisapetty.com, and follow me on all the majors like Dr. Lisa Petty. I kept it pretty simple on Instagram, etc. I have just launched a couple of memberships. So depending on where you are in the, what is she talking about? There's the sort of the introductory, these are the questions you need to ask membership. I call that Making Sense of Midlife Toolkit. It's everything I used to move through that process myself when I was just like, oh, my kid's going to move out. What does that mean? And of course, backed by my doctoral research and that sort of thing. So I have the toolkit. And then when you're really ready to do that alchemy, I have another membership and I have coaching. If you want to do a deep dive on your own mindset, your beliefs, what needs to shift, the energetic shifts that you need to make, which, whatever it is you want to create, if there's a block, the block is on the inside, the block is not outside, right? So we need to shift whatever is happening inside as well. So, yeah. And I should say, I wrote a book called Forget About Having It All. And the subtitle is The Midlife Woman's Guide to Creating the Life You Want. So it's, again, just the story of my journey, and it's supported by my doctoral research. So that's a quick, easy read to really kind of start asking yourself the right questions as well. And that's available on Amazon around the world.
Just thank you for an amazing conversation and just sharing the wisdom and teaching me so much as well, because I always listen in and I always hear something new. So it's such a timely conversation now with so many shifts and
Yes.
so many people looking out into the world going, things that I've believed and ideas that I've had about the way things should go are being shifted, and what does that mean for me in however big or small I want to make that change. So thank you for being part of that.
Yes, I appreciate it. I really enjoyed chatting with you today.
Thank you, Lisa, for our great conversation, and thank you for listening. I'm excited to invite you on a journey, embody higher energetic resonance, 3 steps closer to becoming the woman of your dreams. And this is where you get clear about the dream version of you, and then you embody her. Feel who you are meant to be. If you want to start your free journey today, take a look at the link in the show notes and sign up completely free. Also, you can go to my website to find out more about me. That's carolmaywhittick.com, carolmaewhittick.com, all about me and more information about my spiritual life coaching. If you want to connect on social media, you can do so on Instagram, Kazmic, Kazmick. On Facebook, you can find me as Carol May Whittick, or if you want to join our new group, it's Higher Energetic Resonance Visionary Women. Put that in the search bar, click and join. So until the next week, thank you for listening.